It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thank you so much for being here. So I heard the White House has banned the trans activists who went topless at the Pride event the other day. That they could not allow it because it was a family affair. And as we know, the Pride movement, now taken over by the radical transgender activist movement, is all about family.
Oh, yeah, starting with 5-year-olds.
Yes. All about families. And talk about the left against the border family separation. Mm-hmm. They're all for the family separation if the parents don't agree with a child that it is time for mutilation or irreversible hormone therapy.
Right.
They're all about family.
Right.
Then there was the White House breaking the flag code. You think the White House cares about breaking the flag code?
Come on, Jack.
Come on. You actually think they care about that? Oh, no.
I'll determine what flag code is, Jack.
Rich Lowry, against the pride flag. We already have a flag that includes everyone, that doesn't require a constant ideological makeover and isn't an eyesore. In June, when one can be forgiven for thinking that we live in the United States of LGBTQIA2S+. Oh Glory is at its best supplemented with and sometimes supplanted by the pride flag in all its varieties. The flag, which has become more and more unsightly, is everywhere. It's increasingly elaborate jumbo of clashing stripes, whether seen in a store, at a ball game, or on a U.S. government building, is a reminder to get with the program, and the program is always changing.
Yeah.
Team Biden.
Ever-changing.
What'd I say?
No, I was just adding to it.
Oh, okay. Team Biden.
Never mind me.
I don't. Team Biden.
I'm sorry, what?
Team Biden draped what is known to be as the Progress Pride flag, with no fewer than 11 different colors on the White House in between two American flags, giving it, no pun intended, pride of place. Flags are not trifling matters. People rally to them and live and die for them. The firing on the flag at Fort Sumter on the onset of the Civil War, for instance, had a galvanizing effect on the North, on forts and ships, from church spires to flag staffs, from colleges, hotels, storefronts, private balconies. In public, everywhere the old flag was flung out. Historian George Preble writes on the passage that could almost as accurately describe the unavoidable June displays of the pride flag. Whereas the power of the Star-Spangled Banner in its extraordinary history is a relatively simple design. It's easily understood symbolism, and it's called to unify all Americans, not to mention the sacrifices made to defend it. The pride flag is the opposite. It's always being refashioned. The version displayed at the White House dates all the way back to 2018. It's an aesthetic disaster, and its banner concerned with the recognition of splinter groups. If you wanted to create a visual representation of intersectionality, the latest of the pride flags would be it. The old, quaint rainbow flag had the virtue of being simpler than its subsequent renditions and of representing broad categories of things, life, sunlight, etc., rather than specific groups of people. The flag started as 8 stripes and got dropped to 6 for pragmatic reasons before additional stripes started getting layered in. As it happens, there are now dozens of separate flags out there for every gender identity and sexual orientation, pansexual, non-binary, gender fluid, asexual, you name it. How could they be left out? First, the city of Philadelphia added black and brown stripes to the top of the flag in 2017 to recognize people of color. The next year, the designer took the black and brown stripes along with the light blue, pink, and white stripes incorporated from the transgender flag and put them in a horizontal chevron to make the Progress Pride flag. Yet another update added a yellow triangle with a purple circle from the intersex flag. The resulting banner has all the visual appeal of a TV test pattern. It's hard to see any principle by which other groups should be excluded. By the time it's all said and done, the thing could look like a Sherwin-Williams fan deck if it already doesn't. Like the LGBTQ cause generally, the flag has become increasingly obsessed with identity politics. There's always another letter or another stripe. But what better representation of a movement that has gone down the rabbit hole with such bizarre causes as insisting that males compete in women's sports and minors get life-altering, quote, gender-affirming care, end of quote, that other advanced nations are turning away from as a terrible mistake. Yes, yet it flies everywhere as though it were a quasi-national flag with universal popular assent. Even U.S. government buildings here at home and the U.S. embassies abroad are bedecked with the flag. If Republicans ever get unified control of the government, they should ban the practice. The government should not be promoting boutique causes. We already have a flag that includes everyone, and it doesn't require constant ideological makeovers, and that isn't an eyesore. The stars and stripes should be sufficient for this and every other month.
Great points.
Article.
And also, how dare you? Because remember, if you fly a flag in front of your house, well, then that's you're signaling that you're a conservative. That's where the left is today. Remember what they were saying last year and year before. F the 4th.
Oh, yeah.
On Independence Day.
Yeah.
This is who they are.
Well, I was amazed that the flag code, that probably the left believes that the flag code was violated because the two U.S. flags were up near the pride flag.
Yeah, right. That's their violation.
That would be their violation, right?
Yeah. But, of course, Mr. Lowry is right in every way here. And it's ridiculous over and over again. But, you know, the movement is becoming so bad now that you have liberals, you have people that were part of the group now saying, we don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, as we said, that had the agreement, I can't remember the gentleman who was one of the leading activists, gay activists for gay marriage.
Yeah.
He has to be probably in his 70s.
I was thinking probably around there.
In his 70s, and talked about how he fought for gay rights.
Right.
And now he's completely against pride, completely against what it has become. And actually said what we said. Something I've been saying for the last 30 years. The pride mindset to begin with is bogus. It's always been bogus. I don't care whether it's black pride, white pride, gay pride, transgender pride. It's ridiculous. And he even said exactly what we have said.
Pride is about behavior.
Pride's about behavior. I mean, if he goes, I don't even know what it means anymore. Because
Right.
what do you mean? You're proud, and you know his argument is, I'm gay. This is how I was born. Why am I celebrating it? How can I be prideful of something that I am? Was his argument. It's always been my argument. And I've said it from the beginning of being a talk show host. When that was viewed, because it was more, you don't really hear black pride as much anymore. What you hear is what you hear is pride, which encompasses sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear it anymore. But I'd stated it way back then because it was out when I became a talk show host.
Yeah.
But not as you didn't see it as often as you did Black Pride. I said all are dumb concepts, stupid concepts. But we live in a nation that's pretty stupid for a significant number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's where we are today. But now the Pride movement has been taken over by the radical transgender activist movement. It's no longer about being gay. It's about mutilation of children and men defining what women are and playing sports against women.
No, they're abolishing Title IX.
Yep.
And women's rights more and more. Every day. And that's part of the entire agenda at work here, and I think why they're turning so many on the left off. Look, we didn't know how it's hard to predict how many will rally against the mob, but you're seeing more people stand up against the angry mob. On the issues, you see the polling. The American people clearly are not on their side.
Well, you know, the whole thing is what the White House, because they've now banned that transgender activist because that has no place.
How dare you?
You don't even know what the hell you're promoting.
Right.
You don't even know what the Pride movement has become.
How dare you?
You're completely blind.
Exactly.
That's exactly what you saw from that trans activist is exactly what the Pride movement is today in 2023.
In fact, I was waiting for a comment to say we welcome everybody,
right?
And we're not ashamed of her behavior. I was waiting for that. How dare you?
Right.
I'm waiting also for the left to say, and maybe it's already happened. I didn't see it. See, he's too old to be president. He doesn't understand. Remember, he didn't say.
I'm waiting for the blowback here.
Right.
Well, you did see and I don't know. Was that person? Is that a trans woman or just a trans activist? So I don't know. Well, but so I couldn't figure out. I mean, they never said that the person who took the top off was a trans woman or a biological woman who was a trans activist. But I did see that the trans activist did double down on it and saying the whole concept is about freeing the nipple. So then I went right back to the Seinfeld episode. In my head.
Yeah.
That's the thing. When you sit there and you say, well, I think that's sort of, Seinfeld.
Yeah. Look, the left is already, the far left doesn't have any use for this president. And a lot of that is on him. How many genders are there? What do you say? 3?
3.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
3?
Nobody.
That was back in 2020.
Isn't it great though? Because no liberal will ask him any question because they're afraid of what he'll say.
Exactly.
So they don't even want to know.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, he sort of is with us, and so we don't know whether he has any clue as to whether he's actually but he's with us and he's smiling. But don't ask him any questions.
Yeah.
Don't ask him any type of pride questions. Don't ask him how many genders there are because he's going to give you the wrong answer.
Right.
Because the right answer is as many as you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love over the last couple of weeks, though, how now in a couple of arguments and blogs and everything else, well, gender isn't sex. No. You can't change again.
No.
That was your argument.
No.
5 or 6 years ago,
right.
about 10 years ago. And now that it's become biological males or biological females, if they say so, that's why they can play sports. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is there's no difference between in fact, we're wondering why the trans movement doesn't want to take the word trans out of it.
Right. Why do you have to say trans?
Right. And so they can't make the argument that biological men should play against biological women unless they combine the two together.
Right.
But at the same time, they want to separate it. It's like we want the argument that sits our narrative at a particular moment for a particular argument. There doesn't need to be any consistency because we define whatever we wish to define and however we wish to define any term whenever we wish to define it or redefine it.
If you say a trans woman is a woman, then you don't need the T in the LGBTQ?
Right. You don't know.
You don't need the movement.
It's a ball of confusion.
Yep. We don't write the rules, but we are watching with lots of popcorn.
Yes, we are looking for consistency in the rules, though.
Yeah.
But as we've said before, nothing is everything and everything is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There are no defined words. We define what we wish to define at the moment, and the left will redefine words 180 degrees different than what they actually are. And
Right.
we've seen it.
And if you say something, that's violence. If you say nothing, that's
Right.
violence.
Right.
We're gonna come after you one way or the other.
We're going to cover it because basically whatever we think is correct and you're wrong. Yeah, I'm so glad that the head of the publisher from the Washington Post is leaving. Yeah, deal with that one for compromise. The other side believes, no, my argument is whatever I say is correct. And if you're silent or if you speak, well, then you need to be punished.
I also love the admission in that action that the Washington Post does anything but bring people together. Tell me where I'm wrong.
866-90 Red Eye.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, there's always ebbs and flows in society, and especially with young people. And I saw these two stories came out yesterday. One, a group of high school students' visceral reaction to an LGBT pride video shown in math class went viral this week from California. A student at what's been identified as Edison High School in Huntington Beach, California, filmed classmates loudly groaning and protests as their teacher plays a Pride Month video during class. The students moan, "Stop," and turn it off. One student shouts, "Why are you showing this to kids?" The teacher scolds the students to be quiet and warns them they will have to watch it in Saturday school if they continue to make noise. Hey, I'll warn you guys now, if you're going to be inappropriate, I will have supervision down and give you all Saturday school. So knock it off, the unnamed teacher said. The clip went viral after a parent at the school seems to have shared it on social media. Then you had this other story. Students at a Massachusetts Pride event destroyed decorations, chanted, "USA are my pronouns." Massachusetts.
Wow. Boston
area school, Massachusetts. California school. There's always a blowback from kids. I think a lot of kids will look at the generation before them and say, we're not going to be brainwashed. Right. We practice autonomy. We treat people as individuals. We'll talk more about this coming up.
Giving you 70% each night. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, he just said that. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want. And I like that when we get that now. Hey, guys, I listen when and where I want. Oh, okay, you're listening to our podcast. Okay, that's
now,
cool.
Part of our audience, and they know who they are, listen when we want.
Which is right now?
It's whenever we want and when we say so.
Okay.
And they know it. They even know what that means.
So talking about those two stories that I read, the school outside of Boston, Boston area middle school.
Yeah.
This was students at a Boston area middle school were accused of homophobia and intolerance by education officials after they tore down rainbow decorations and chanted that USA was their pronoun during displays of intolerance and homophobia. Students at Marshall Simmons Middle School in Burlington were invited to wear rainbow-colored clothing on June 2nd in celebration of Pride Month. On the same day, there was a counter-demonstration in response to what should have been a day of celebration. Students wore red, white, and blue clothing, chanted, "My pronouns are USA," and destroyed some rainbow decorations at the school. So that was the story. The other one was a California high school, and the students' visceral reaction to an LGBTQ pride video shown in math class. The student at what's been identified at Edison High School in Huntington Beach, California, filmed classmates loudly groan in protest as their teacher plays a Pride Month video during class. Students moan, "Stop," and turn it off. One student shouts, Why are you showing this to kids? The teacher then scolds the students to be quiet, warns them they will have to watch it. In a Saturday school, wow, that's like the Breakfast Club. We never had detention on Saturday, ever.
No.
Never.
No.
But I found that interesting. Oh, we're going back to the 80s again. But they'd have to
I was at school in the 80s. We didn't have it then.
I went to schools before the 80s, and we didn't have it.
Yeah.
Watch it in the 1870s.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you, if you went to school on Saturday, did you have to tie your horse and carriage out front?
Yep. Hey, I'll warn you guys now. By the way, was that appropriate for the teacher to say, quote, I'll warn you guys now? Was that gender-appropriate language from the teacher? See, look at all we're learning.
Listen, you got to go by the rule book.
If you're going to be appropriate, I will have supervision down here and give all of you Saturday school. So knock it off. This, by the way, is not unexpected. What one generation considers radical, the next generation will consider establishment.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, and you go back to the 1960s, and you go back to when rock and roll came around. That was sort of cultural. There was a music thing, but it was also about more expression of sexuality, which before that you didn't express it publicly the way that it happened. We can look at it now and see that, and look at it and say, "Oh, it was harmless, right?"
Right.
Dancing, Elvis doing it. You look at it and you go, okay, the music good. He sort of looks stupid doing that. But again, and people would have the opinion based on that. But whether that would be an overt form of sexuality, most people now would say no, not even old folks like me. And you look at rock and roll, and again, people have different views of it. I remember my father. The reason that I grew up, the reason I love prog rock, is because of my father being so scared of rock and roll that he had all classical music. We had all classical music records. That's all that was on all day, and John Philip Sousa marching band stuff, which is why today I hear Stars and Stripes Forever, I get goosebumps. And I know it's because that was pounded into my head as a kid. And I love classical music because of that. But then the rock that I love, and I love all forms of rock, but to me, the rock and roll growing up, even when I did, because I entered my teenage years in the late 60s. And so even during the whole Beatles thing, when the Beatles came out, you know how you hear, like, for example, the Foo Fighters and everybody say the Beatles, it was the Beatles, it was the Beatles. When the Beatles came out, I thought they were very simplistic musically.
Yeah.
I just went, I want to hold your hand. Come on, you're going nuts about that? That's what I was thinking as a kid in elementary school. And kids would ask me, and it wasn't because anybody, what do you think about the Beatles? I go, I want to hold your hand. Come on. And, when they got into their drug years, when near the end, Hey Jude and stuff like that, I went, okay, this is getting a lot more interesting. And then when they all split on their own, I wasn't that huge of a John Lennon fan. I loved, you and I talked about this. George Harrison was our favorite Beatle afterwards. Did we discuss that, or was it?
Yeah, that wasn't me that said that, but yeah.
Oh, I thought it was you who said that.
I appreciated his guitar work after the Beatles more than I did during the Beatles.
That's a discussion we had then. Yeah. He afterwards he was, to me, I liked his stuff the best.
My favorite was Ringo. Sorry.
I always liked Photograph.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I don't have a favorite.
Well, I mean, I just like when I hear it today. I mean, even today I was like, I don't think I ever bought any of their records. So even afterwards, just on the radio that I heard it.
Yeah.
But to me, rock and roll that was really a huge, I think sexual cultural change in America at that time, and then became much more war related. When I was growing up, to me, it was never either of those.
Right. Yeah.
To me, it was rock and roll was always about individual freedom. I always viewed it that way. It always inspired me as an individual. To me, it was about autonomy. You're creating something that you like for everybody to hear. And I've always, I understood the relationship to the hippie movement and all that. But I mean, and some of the concepts were really good. The distrust of government that came out of there, very, very healthy. But when you look at the fact of how that cultural revolution started, it was really basic stuff. Oh, our parents are too square. We want to dance. We want to have fun. And it reminded me of my old friend Parissa when she came from Iran back about 15 years ago. And I had a discussion with her as to why she came over when she was 18. And she said, I asked her, do you hate the United States? She goes, no, I love the United States. We all do. She goes, we know what's going on. We knew what was going on. We've got computers. They can't hide what's going on in the United States. And what really got her was what would get a normal 18-year-old. I want to be able to dance. For her, it was like, I want to be able to swim with boys. And this was just share a pool. Have a party with boys and swim in a pool that they couldn't do. But all those little things that happen when you're young that turn into, okay, these are the things I want to do as an individual, and I want to be an individual. I want to be autonomous. I want to be able to do the things without somebody telling me to do it, whether it's a government or your parents, really is the basis, when you think about it, of many of our laws and our Constitution, as you get to be an adult. Now, you evolve to different things that you believe are important, free speech, Second Amendment, freedom of religion, all that stuff, but it's all the basic stuff. But you had kids that felt that the culture was oppressing them. The culture was making them conform in another way. I don't know of another generation than this generation that has been not subtly told to conform, but you must believe something that is completely untrue, that is biologically untrue. You must be forced not just to tolerate it or accept it, but to celebrate it with us. And if you don't celebrate it with us, we are going to destroy your life. We're going to punish you. That, to me, is something we haven't seen in this country culturally. Not to this, and I think the natural reaction,
part of the backlash,
and that's what I believe it is. I believe you're going to see a natural backlash from the generations of younger kids observing this, saying, well, "That's part of the establishment. I don't buy into that crap."
Well, it is resisting authority as adolescents will always do, and I think it's also quite possibly the reason why the far left and the agenda dictates that you must start it at the age of 5.
Yes.
There isn't that resistance of authority. There's the acceptance, in fact, reliance on authority for everything in life. And if you grab them then there won't be that resistance because I can tell you right now, I mean, I see a real independence streak in my grandchildren that is indicative of, first of all, the attitude toward authority, but they also respect authority that respects them as individuals and their autonomy. So they don't have a problem with that, but when you're trying to force feed them something and you try and say, you must accept this. You're the authority saying that, and they're adolescents, and that naturally is going to be oil and water. That naturally isn't going to fly. And I think the left thought that they were going to, and many on the left thought that they were going to get that wide acceptance from the next generation. And they're not getting it. And when you don't get it, what do? Well, we need to start teaching earlier.
Yep.
Indoctrination needs to start at 5.
Right. And if it doesn't start at 5, what we need to do is what the whole Leah Thomas thing did, which now you see these women Ivy League swimmers coming out and saying, basically, it was implied to us, we will destroy your life.
Right.
We'll destroy your scholarship. We'll destroy your ability to work in the future. You either get aboard or you don't. But that's what you have to do at an older age in order to coerce people to buy into your BS.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not even BSing anymore because you know you can't BS them, so you intimidate them, will destroy your life. Well, that really hasn't happened. This has never happened in the country. I expect that the backlash of younger people and the next generation will even be greater than we might expect, because this oppression to believe what everybody knows is BS. A biological man can't be a biological woman, and a biological man should not be competing against a biological woman in sports. We all know that.
There is the generational gap, and then there's also a massive reality gap. And when you look at that, I mean, imagine had M. Night Shyamalan written the movie The Village, where they decide where the kids are adolescents, and then they all move to a village, right? And they're like, we're going to do what? Yeah, we're going to live like the old times. I'm sorry. No.
That's why there was no Village 2.
Right. Because the idea is that if you, and indoctrination, the reason that the left needs that indoctrination to start much earlier is because if you start from the very beginning, the very early days of them learning, and you teach them that grass is the color blue, it is not green, that becomes their reality. That goes beyond indoctrination, but it's a lot like The Village. If they're born into it, it is their reality.
Right. And the adults viewed their lies as acceptable.
Yes, and justified.
And justified. Right. And then, when Ron Howard's daughter finds out it's not true, you see the terror in it that she still has, and the confusion, the complete confusion that she has. And then the elders realize this can't go on forever.
Right.
Eventually, we did this, but it can't continue. You cannot continue something like that.
Right.
That's a great point. That's a great analogy using The Village.
It's really because it is that form of indoctrination in this case.
Yeah.
The parents coming together and deciding that's what they're going to do. But it is the idea is that you have to, in order for that to be their reality, it has to be that reality from the beginning.
And remember, the fear was the monsters.
Right.
The monsters that will kill you.
Right.
That's how you kept everybody in line.
Exactly.
That was the brainwashing.
Right.
Wow.
Or in this case, in today's world, the conservatives. They're the monsters.
It's a great point.
They are the color red.
Oh, no.
Okay, get M. Night Shyamalan on the phone.
Get him on the phone. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just love that Village analogy. I love it because because that movie is about brainwashing kids.
It's about indoctrination from the beginning, and the only way to thoroughly do that is to make sure that it happens from birth, from a very, very early age at the very least, to the extent in the movie that they were not prepared. In fact, they were basically crippled. They could never go into the real world.
Right.
Think about this.
They weren't prepared.
They were not prepared at all. had zero skills to go into the real world, and that group of adults made sure of that.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.
Well, what will the climate be like in 10 years? I have to tell you, we've gone through a couple of days in Texas where nobody's sure what the weather is going to be in 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
Man, I mean, this whatever this weather phenomena is, it is unique. I have had 3 days in a row now, not a lot of hail. Now, people right in my neighborhood got killed, but it missed our street. You know, the real bad baseball size hail. But even yesterday, I got a little bit. But I went out yesterday, and it's like, okay, I checked everything. No rain, nothing for like 5 hours, 5 or 6 hours. Like, this is going to be great. So I go out, and I had to get the lawn cut. It's been raining so much. Going away for a couple of days, to see my dad, and it's like, I want to cut the lawn. Yeah. My lawn is 3/4 cut. It started raining right in the middle. I went, can't be raining. I just checked an hour ago. There are no rain clouds. It's not going to hit. Boy, those look like rain clouds. All of a sudden, it's pouring. I'm running back into the garage. I'm like, oh, no. And so hopefully I can finish it today. And then when I went to sleep before I took my nap last night, we were supposed to be major rain all overnight. Nothing.
Yeah, right.
Nothing. And then it was supposed to be this morning. Now they have it back to late tonight. And I'm thinking to myself, and they're telling me what the climate is going to be in 50 years, or 20 years, or even in 10 years. And I don't think anybody's to blame for it. I'm not critical because I know how, meteorology works, and I know how things can change so quickly. But this is just one of those times where I wouldn't want to be a weather person because you've got to be getting blasted constantly. You said it's going to rain in an hour. There's nothing.
Yeah. And now it looks like...
what is it now? Has it changed since I checked 20 minutes ago?
Yeah. 100% chance of rain right now. Look outside. No. They had taken out the chance of rain. They'd lowered it greatly for here in a couple of hours, but now they put it back in for it's only a slight chance, relatively speaking, but they had lowered it before. Yeah, just the way it goes, man. If you don't like the forecast, wait 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's just like what? So hopefully I'll be able to finish the lawn today. When we talk about, and we played clips earlier of the GOP Senate going after the FBI deputy guy. We call him deputy guy.
the assistant deputy dude.
If you missed it earlier in the show, I was like, the assistant deputy, and Eric goes, director. I go, guy, whatever.
Yeah.
So we've just had fun with it. And they talked about the weaponization of government. But what do you actually do? I mean, that's and I read a column New York Post had one saying elections aren't going to change this. And so, did you read that editorial, which was like, elections aren't going to change it,
right?
Which then, okay, are we hinting that only violence can change what's going on? And so you see that, and that was the debate going on from either side. Is it going to be, because if you have, one of the fears that you have when you have a two-tier level of justice system and have it for a significant period of time is a complete lack of trust. It's almost as if it's like the entire thing that the left doesn't understand about when they say we shouldn't have an electoral college. That everything should be a popular vote. Well, no, the reason you have the electoral college is because, and the reason you have the Senate is because Vermont needs to feel that they have some representation in an election and some representation in the government. If they don't, there's no need to be there. Right. That's how you get revolution. Our revolution was about what? Taxation without representation. That's how we came here. We don't get to decide anything, and so that's why we're a republic and why we're not a democracy. Why popular vote, doesn't matter. And so when you have, or why the popular vote is not the preferred system of government in the United States, It was done in a calculated way that you can only keep a country together if everybody feels they are represented somehow.
Right.
So you have the Senate. Yeah, okay, the population is represented in the House. The states are represented, the geographical areas of the states, with the Senate. Well, the left wants to get rid of all of that. Well, the reason that happened is so you wouldn't have another civil war. And that was the Founding Fathers learning from the fact that we just came out of a civil war and we won. And so in order to keep this loosely, held country together of the 13 states, we need to do things differently than England did. That was part of the philosophy behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when you have a two-tier system of government, you have one political side say, my God, the government's coming after us. We can't stop them. And it started with you. If you think about it, I mean, how many years, when was the Lois Lerner thing with the IRS?
That was
seven years ago?
No, it was during Obama, so that was was it 20? It was his first term, wasn't it?
Because they were going after the
Tea Party.
Yeah, they were going after the Tea Party.
So it would have been 2012, maybe.
Okay, I'm going through the. 2006, she was appointed director of exempt organizations.
Right.
2013.
Okay.
So we're talking 9 years where you have the Republicans and those that are conservative say the government has been weaponized against them.
Mm-hmm.
It's 9 years. It's almost, excuse me, it's 2013? Yeah. 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go.
So a decade. So it's been a continuing thing. It's not just one-off. And that's the problem is when you have that, then people say, why am I a part of this democracy if, in essence, the culture of the federal government is that it doesn't matter how I vote, and this is where the whole thing came from. Doesn't matter if I vote, the government is still against me. So what do you do about the weaponization of government? What can the Republicans do? Well, really interesting article RCP has where they got an exclusive with DeSantis.
Yeah.
DeSantis's plan to wage war on the weaponized Department of Justice, that he says you have to do more than, because we had talked about this earlier about Trump. Why did Trump reappoint Comey? He shouldn't have done that.
Right.
He kept the culture the same in the FBI.
Yep.
Now, again, it was early on. I mean, we aren't where we were now. But when you look at that point, you say, probably not the best move. And it says, this is from RCP that got the exclusive from DeSantis. DeSantis has been working for months on plans to tear down and rebuild both the Department of Justice and the FBI, consulting with experts and members of Congress to develop a day-one strategy to end what conservatives see as a weaponization of the justice system. The governor has privately told advisors he will hire and fire plenty of federal personnel, reorganize entire agencies, and execute a disciplined and relentless strategy to restore the Justice Department to a mission more in line with what the Founding Fathers envisioned. But his ambitious plans go beyond bureaucratic restructuring. He wants to physically remove large portions of the Department of Justice from the District of Columbia, including the FBI headquarters. Real Clear Politics is first to report. We are not going to let all this power accumulate in Washington, D.C. We're going to break up these agencies, DeSantis said during a private strategy session over the weekend, excerpts of which were obtained exclusively by RCP. He vowed in that call to order some of the problematic components of the Department of Justice uprooted, reorganized, and then promptly shipped to other parts of the country. This fits with one of the central themes of the DeSantis campaign, namely that he'd be an energetic executive, a president with focus and attention to detail necessary to make the most of his Article II powers. On the stump, the governor regularly wins applause from primary voters, promising not just to wage war on the so-called deep state, but to end it. And that would be the difference for DeSantis if he went in and said, look, here's my plan. Here's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I can do about not just complain about it and not just do executive orders, but actually change it.
Yeah.
Use my powers of the authority that I have of the executive branch to do it. The goal, according to senior outside advisors, ought to be returning the Department of Justice and the FBI to a more limited pre-9/11 mission. Republicans were outraged last Friday when former President Trump was indicted for mishandling classified documents. DeSantis has condemned that move, and his campaign scheduled the Saturday conference call, not knowing, he told advisors, that would be news last night. But the governor is also intimately familiar with conservative gripes about political bias inside President Biden's Department of Justice. They have been central through the campaign. We've seen throughout this country that the Department of Justice and FBI are controlled by one faction of our society, DeSantis said on the call, pointing to how those agencies are going after pro-life activists, wrongfully investigating parents at school board meetings who are concerned about things like critical race theory and forcing kids to wear masks, and the liberal radical transgender activist movement, and colluding with tech companies to censor information as they did with the 2020 election. He has assembled a brain trust of academics, members of Congress, and former administration officials to draw up step-by-step blueprints for tearing the Department of Justice and FBI down to the studs for a rebuild. He consults regularly with Representatives Tom Massey of Kentucky and Chip Roy of Texas. Conservatives always at war with the government bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm laughing because every time I go to YouTube, there's Chip Roy, and he's very passionate and loud.
Always on fire.
Yes, always on fire.
Yeah.
Steve Bradbury of the Heritage Foundation and Victor Davis Hanson of the Hoover Institution have also joined the working group to offer technical expertise and a historical perspective. I wouldn't be mad if he wants to add a liberal, to add Dershowitz and Turley to that.
Yeah, right.
Just because at the point you can say, I've got Democrats who are sick of what's going on, too.
Mm-hmm.
There have been regular conference calls detailed, and that's to make it more popular politically.
Yeah,
you
sure.
add them.
Right.
There have been regular conference calls, detailed memos, and at least one policy retreat in Tallahassee earlier this year. The work is ongoing because their enemy, the so-called deep state, is vast. Their aim is nothing short of crippling it once and for all. The key feature of the emerging plan: move fast, don't wait for Congress. So there you go. Which is said, I've got Article 2 powers of what I can do. We're going to use them like they haven't been used, by other presidents, but are perfectly legal to do so.
Sure. Interesting. So,
So it's a pretty long article. I didn't read the whole thing, but it's basically he's got the whole point, a step-by-step plan. Not say you're going to do it or just appoint certain people, but basically use your powers to say we're going to change it to what they're supposed to be and not what they become. Because how else do you get rid of the rot? How else do you get rid of that?
What's interesting?
You can't do it by just putting in one FBI director who may agree 70% with your philosophy.
Years ago, I mentioned this article that I read about how many activists were put in different levels of different positions within government during the Obama year. And we're not talking appointees. These are hires.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a massive group. I don't remember the number. I'm not going to even attempt it, but it was a massive amount of people. And the point they were making in this article was that it would take you forever to undo that. The idea is that you put them there. And then I thought, okay, but this is where we began. We said, look, it's not about a massive conspiracy. It's about the same mindset.
Culture.
So when you create that culture, like the Lois Lerner thing and all of this, then you have to restructure the system to make sure that culture cannot permeate, that culture cannot breed more corruption. That's what you have to do. And so you're not going to do it politically. But there has to be a plan to get rid of the rot. And it has to be a thorough plan, start to finish.
866-90 Red Eye.
Over the last few months, grocery store food price inflation has continued to grow, but at a very slow pace. And in the newest Consumer Price Index report covering May,
we saw a continued slowing of that growth in food prices.
USDA economist Megan Schweitzer says prices grew last month by only 0.1%, which is about as close to zero inflation as you can get. Most items still went up in price last month, items like beef, fresh fruits, and vegetables, but some things saw price declines. Big good news story, the price of eggs.
For eggs, we saw a large drop in price this month. Eggs fell 13.8%, and so we've seen 4 months in a row of price declines for eggs.
And in fact,
eggs are actually down year over year now. So eggs are down 0.4% from May of last year.
Partly because we haven't seen any outbreaks of bird flu in commercial egg-laying flocks since last December. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report is made possible by Cenex Roadmaster XL Premium Diesel and Citgo Lubricants.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Looking at some of the inflation numbers. I mean, the initial number looks good, down to 4% year to year, down from 4.9%. The bad part is the Fed's preferred inflation measure, the Personal Consumption Expenditure Index, which means what you actually spend money on.
Right.
Excluding food and energy, was 4.7%.
Mm-hmm.
On a year, year to year. And then core prices, and especially services, still up 6.6%.
Yeah.
So,
and, it's interesting when you look at it, you do the breakdown. Even CNN had the headline, grocery prices are rising in America again, and here's what's getting more expensive. When CNN had that headline, I thought to myself, okay, you can't ignore what's going on. And we've talked about it. You said it often. You said, look, it's about the prices. The prices keep going up. They try and say, well, inflation is slowing down. That makes it sound like prices are coming down, and they're not.
No. Eggs did, but eggs was I was listening
there were a few things where prices did come down. But the
agriculture report, which comes from the Biden administration, and they said because there's been no bird flu.
Right.
The bird flu is what really killed those prices last year.
What they had to remedy, they actually got done.
Right.
And that was something that wasn't, and the rise in the cost of eggs was not in direct proportion to where inflation was with other items on the grocery list.
It was way over, right?
It was way over.
Because of the bird flu.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it, though, again, prices are still on the rise. They're going up again for many of those items. And the question is, where's the relief?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, it seems like you say the experts. I'm like, who's actually an expert on the economy? Because all of their predictions are almost always wrong all of the time and always in one direction.
Yeah.
So there might be a bit of propaganda in economic forecasts out there. I know
Maybe.
that may be a radical thing to say, but but it seems like what they're saying is the Fed next week is not going to increase rates.
Yeah.
Leave it the same. And it said, Wall Street Journal is sort of saying, well, they may do it now, but they're going to raise them again by the end of the year. When you see that with things that people most buy, when you have core prices still at 6.6, you still got a problem.
Yeah.
And when you have, remember, they want to get it beneath 2. So even though overall inflation's at 4, they want it beneath 2. And the core inflation is still up there, and the personal consumption is still up there.
Yeah.
What people, especially services. And
yeah, core CPI year over year was right on the median forecast, 5.3%. And
5.3?
Mm-hmm. And when you look at that, that's the...
okay. Core prices and then services is up 6.6 per year. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. I read that. I said I thought they combined core prices and especially services.
Right.
The core prices and especially services, and then they have in parentheses up 6.6. So services are up. That has to be labor cost, right? Probably.
Yeah, I'm guessing. And so, that's a lower rate than the month before at 5.5, but 5.3 is still a very healthy core CPI rate year over year. And I think, when you look at the core CPI month over month at 0.4, look, it gets back to what we said. Prices are still on the rise. People are waiting for and have been waiting for prices to drop, and you're not going to see that. You don't see that when they hit the target of 2% inflation. I mean, that's still prices going up. It's just at a lower rate. You don't notice it like we've noticed it over the last couple of years. But this is compounded over where we were May of last year. And so you look at the prices then, and again, those prices still going up, with the exception of eggs, and eggs was about the bird flu. Now that is corrected, and I think there are a couple of other things where prices have come down, but overall, you're seeing that basket, that grocery basket, still on the rise. When CNN makes note of it, and they do what I thought was a pretty fair breakdown of grocery prices, still on the rise, when they're actually doing journalism at CNN, that's when you know. Because people right now are going through that. And I'd love to see, I haven't watched for it, but people like Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, who had said that, look, when we get to the summer, by the time we get to the summer, any savings that was there is going to be gone. So we're here.
This paragraph here, I laughed because I went, oh, man. But I probably instead of crying, but as they write here in this Wall Street Journal editorial, the Fed has never attempted to raise rates from such low-for-long levels while also shrinking its balance sheet to unwind quantitative easing in the middle of a multi-trillion-dollar deficit-financed Keynesian fiscal expansion. Just reading that sentence, I started laughing, and I'm going to cry if I don't laugh.
No, I mean, it's filled with so much, but it lines it out accurately.
And then they write, speaking of which, the other new unknown concerns the consequences for the financial system of resumed Treasury debt issuance during the Fed's quantitative tightening now that the debt ceiling has been raised. That could cause rates to rise depending on demand. Money tightening produced the financial cracks that appeared in March's bank panic, and more fissures are appearing in commercial real estate. While the Fed may have an excuse to pause this week, it's still very much on monetary call for the rest of the year. And you think about it, I mean, the stories that we've done this week in San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many of the buildings there say, sorry, we're just going to we're going to default. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bank, you can have the building, the mall. What was it, 3 or 4? That's just this week.
Yeah.
Office buildings inside of San Francisco saying we just can't do it. How is that going to hit? How is that going to hit other cities? And I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and I'll have to see if anybody's writing about it. But when you have places like Texas that, also got hit, I got friends in the commercial real estate business, But the fact is, if you look at it, it's growing tremendously in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We brought you the numbers last week. So even if there was commercial real estate, there still is a demand for mixed-use commercial real estate where, what I want to see is what is the vacancy, what was the worst vacancy commercial real estate in Dallas compared to a San Francisco?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, and what is the growth rate or the either the growth rate or the negative growth rate of commercial real estate right now?
Yeah.
Those are some numbers that I want to see because I think I think it's going to be fascinating to look over the next decade or so when you have this movement and when you have these states that have such high budgets, and we always give the example of New York's state budget is twice what Florida's is, even though they have fewer people. Well, that's pretty intense there, and you have the billionaires and the people because they have such a progressive tax policy that the billionaires and the millionaires pay so much more of the taxes that when a few of them move out, you actually get a huge hit to the system.
Right.
And so those are the things that I would love to see is, what is a projection now over, I don't know if you can project over a 10-year period, but what we found out last week is that the movement from California and Illinois and New York to these southern states like Texas and Florida hasn't subsided post-COVID.
Yeah.
Or from COVID.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things that, that is going on that is in part inflation, I think, especially in the western states. Prices were already high, so you get to a point where it really is a threshold for a lot of people. They just simply can't afford to live there any longer. But then it's compounded by the idea of the rise in crime and everything else. And then you also have to look at where the jobs are going. There's this this perpetual motion or chain of events that happens when companies go to states like Texas and Florida because they get tax breaks and the jobs go there. Then the people are looking to move. And when the people are looking to move, they need jobs. They need plentiful jobs. And then as those people move, other corporations look at it and say, oh, now the talent pool is bigger. Now we can move there and not have to worry about bringing more people in from out of state because we have an existing talent pool already in place as a result of that. So that keeps cycling over and over again, and that's how you see the growth in those low-tax states that are pro-law enforcement. Not that everything is perfect, but they certainly don't have the issues that they have like the major metro areas out west, like San Francisco. I don't know how you fix San Francisco. It's not going to be an election where it's kind of like we were talking about before, the rot at the FBI. You're not going to fix that through elections. You're not going to fix it in San Francisco through elections because nobody believes for a moment they're going to come in and elect a bunch of conservatives. That's not going to happen. And what happens if the liberals come in that are, keep in mind, Gavin Newsom was on the city council there in San Francisco and then became mayor and then, lieutenant governor, now governor, and then he'll be president one day. Some National Review kind of put the wet blanket on that one. It's a good article. But the idea, though, of how that change comes about, it's not going to happen with election. So how does it happen? Well, you're still going to have a liberal base there. Then they have to change at least on a number of issues in order to return San Francisco to a place where people can feel like that they can live and work there safely.
Well, I did hear that, because we had covered this, that the liberals said that if you give $5 million in reparations, that money will drive that money will drive the economy to success. That's the one thing that Democrats aren't selling is if you give. And this is what they were doing this on the Democrats are trying to do this on the federal level.
Yeah.
If we give $14 trillion in debt financing money to every eligible recipient, the economy will boom because people will have money to spend.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So, that's it. That will work. That'll work. Add $14 trillion in debt right now. See what that not going to affect inflation at all.
No.
I mean, no problem. I mean, so you have when things get crazy, they just get more crazy.
Yeah.
Let's do that. By the way, the question I would ask Gavin Newsom, I would have asked if I was Sean Hannity. Look, you guys, you had the state that can't even sell pot.
You can't do legal pot, right?
You can't even sell legal pot. You're selling drugs. You can't even be a dealer, a legal dealer. And this comes from the fact that California's pot tax revenue has fallen for the 7th straight quarter. Wow. Do you know that it has back in the state brought in $180.4 million in cannabis excise taxes in 2012. This quarter, $104.2, down 42%. They're down 32% over the last year. They dropped 18% from the last quarter to the first quarter of 2023. It's crashing.
Yeah.
And what are they blaming? The taxes.
You got
the taxes.
Look,
taxes.
We tried to tell you. Tried to tell you years ago. Legalize it and tax it. Legalize it and tax. You're begging for them to price it out of the market and put it right back into the black market, and that's exactly what's going on.
Dudes, we hate to tell you, we were right, man.
You're right, man. Told you, man.
Well, we did.
Yep, we did.
You were the first one. You were the first one that I remember, outside of maybe I said it once, but you were the first one that really promoted, no, just sell it. Don't tax it. If legalize you sell it and tax it.
Yeah, legalize it.
Yeah, I mean, you were just so passionate a few years back.
And tax it like any other product.
Right.
But now, when the federal government gets in, they're starting at 8%. They want to be 8%. And eventually they will get in. I mean, I don't know when that will be. So you're going to add that 8% to whatever your tax is wherever you live, if it's legal wherever you live.
For people that don't know, that's the cut that the federal government is talking about in order to get, because the Democrats don't want to say, let's legalize it.
Right.
And we don't get a cut of it.
Right.
They got to get a cut of it.
Right. And the cartels are making tons of money.
Right. And if they are, the Democratic cartel has to make their cut.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly. I'm Gary McNamara. So here I'm sitting here and I'm like, my cameras just went off. There's a person in my front yard.
Yeah.
Because it differentiates. And I'm like, it's got to be Amazon. It's an Amazon dropping off something. And it happens to me all the time. I'm going home. I'm like, what's a suspicious car with the engine running and the door is open and whatever? It's like, must be. It's not. You don't worry anymore that it's a burglar. It's like, no, it's Amazon with an early delivery.
And it's always an individual's car.
Yeah.
And I would think, I don't know what the protocol is, but how about you get them something? Uber has a sign in the window. I mean, I don't know. Something. Because I would think that's dangerous potentially for the Amazon driver.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, too. You're walking up and somebody doesn't know they're getting the early delivery.
Right.
And somebody's on your front porch.
Yeah. No, you know what's creepy is ordering something and getting the 4 to 8 a.m. delivery, right? And then I get home at a little after 5, and then there's a package on the porch. I mean, it's weird. I love it, but it's kind of weird.
It's weird, I know.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.